Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Disky Chicks. I'm Cindy Jacoby here with my partner, Martha Forlines, and we are continuing our series on selling using disc styles. And if you'll recall, the last time we spoke, we were talking about selling from a high D perspective. And the D is that dominant or direct, somebody who is really goal-oriented and trying to get the win right away. And we went over how that high D could sell to all the different types of disc styles, the highs and the lows. So we're going to continue with that, right, Martha? But this time we'll look at it from the I perspective. So what can you tell us about the I to get us started?
All righty. Well, welcome everybody. Let me do a quick refresher on what that high influencer shows up like. Remember, they are focused on creating an experience for themselves and for others. They are real emotional beings, and they kind of wear their emotions on their sleeves. But they're very optimistic, enthusiastic, and they tend to strongly believe in their own ideas and dreams, and can be very big picture and conceptual. And the beauty of this high influencer in the selling situation is they are very people focused and not so much looking into the details. They focus on feelings, and they're reading whomever they're selling to by having that real high sensitivity to emotions and body language and that type of thing. So they're really trying to create that positive environment to get the person they're selling to yes.
Indeed.
And that's their goal, and they're really good at it most of the times, right, Cindy?
Well, they're pretty persuasive. That's, the I stands for influence, yes. But they influence with a positive, inspiring, motivating tone. So they're trying to get people to see things from their point of view and win them over and sell them whatever it is, their idea or their product.
Right. And remember, they are very relationship oriented. So they really start out normally with relationship speak, if
Indeed.
you will.
Yeah. They want to get to know you to win you over, I would say.
Yep, exactly. So Cindy, you want to kick us off with this high influencer selling to that high dominant?
Yes. I mean, the high influencer and the high dominant, they both tend to have a lot of energy. They both are considered extroverts. That high dominant or a direct communicator, as we talked about before, they're pretty ambitious and forceful and strong-willed. And it's smart for the high I to understand that. They want to get to the point as quickly as possible. That's not always the way that a high I or a high communicator likes to get to things. They want to, as Martha said, warm up, and they may kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent. And so I think it's really important for that people focus high I to get to the point a lot quicker than they would with maybe another high I. So it's important, if you're a high I, to remember that D is looking for results. They want you to be brief. They want you to have relevant facts and not too much enthusiasm. They get worn out pretty easily. They just want you to get to the point, and they like to have choices typically. So the high influencer is going to want to show what the results are likely to be if they chose this product, what the results would be if they were to choose this product. The high dominant likes that option. They want to make the decision. They don't want to be sold. They want to have enough information where they can choose, I want that one, and they can make a decision pretty darn quickly. They don't need the details, and luckily a high I is not super interested in delivering the details. And that direct does not want to be overpowered. So you need to go toe to toe and do it with a friendly smile without getting too friendly and without getting pushed around either. They'll respect you if you can kind of stand up to them and have a good, strong interaction. It doesn't have to be contentious. It can still be fun, and that's what a high I looking for, but it just needs to be somewhat focused. So the D is not going to look for being oversold or all these over promises. High I is famous for saying it's going to be awesome. That's not going to work with a D. Just kind of stick with the facts, stick with what you think the results are going to be, and then make your cases and let them choose. And I think that the D will respect that, and that will go a lot farther than if you were to let your I show too much. And Martha and I come across this, honestly, we're both in the high 90s in our I. So we have to know too, when to rein that in.
Right, right. So the bottom line of your message is, don't be too gushy and relationship oriented with this high dominant, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they'll get impatient, and you're not going to be able to get them to yes because you put them off.
Right.
So, all right. Thanks, Cindy. That was great. Now let's take a look at this high I working with this reflective communicator. And just a reminder, this reflective communicator is looking for an agreement. And they operate very much in the opposite way of that high dominant. They're more methodical, they're more data oriented and more precise. And that's what they're looking for from whomever is selling them. So remember, a high influencer doesn't have a tendency to be speaking with a lot of precision and detail. But guess what? In order to make that sale, they have to be able to speak that language of that high reflective if they really want to get them to yes, and have enough data that's proof of the power of the product that they're selling or the ideas that they're trying to sell is very, very important. And, the biggest risk is this high influencer operates at a very high pace, but this low dominant, this reflective, operates at a much slower pace. So that high influencer is going to have to go in, as Cindy and I said before, low and slow, so that this person can grasp what this high influencer is trying to share with them, and to the information they're using to get them to yes. Because you can't push them. They will not be pushed into yes. And as a matter of fact, oftentimes they want time to think about it.
Yeah.
So guess what? That high influencer is going to have to be really good on the follow up and follow through and say, well, great, let me give you till the end of the week and I'll check back in with you and see where you are in your decision-making process. So they don't feel kind of like the walls are converging in on them to make that decision.
Yeah, that low D is known for being agreeable and friendly, but they are slow to make a decision. They need a lot more they'll need a lot more time, and they probably want to check with other people and get some other opinions before they make that decision.
Yeah, they would ask for any type of references you can give them to. Tell me some of your clients that I can contact. And, of course, you have to check with that other client to make sure they're okay with it, but they are looking for proof, to Cindy's point.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right. So the next one would be a high I selling to another high I. Nirvana. This would be great if you're a high I, because again, both sides are looking for a good communication experience. And so it's a great matchup. The energy is the same. The priorities tend to be the same. They want to have a good time. They want to have a good exchange, and they want to make that connection. They're usually free to negotiate because they're not hiding behind any walls. They want to find something that's mutually beneficial to both and really enjoy that other person. So this is probably one of the easiest selling relationships that you can have. The challenge is, once again, as is always going to be for a high influencer, is you've got to rein in your own talkativeness. remember that other eye wants to talk too. And since that's the person you're selling to, you got to give to their talkative and maybe quiet down a little bit and let them talk and go in what other direction. Let them take the lead in the conversation. You still can keep things on track and make sure you're still focusing on whatever it is that you're selling or interested in, but focus more on what's beneficial to them and people like them. And just kind of keep steering back to that sales objective, because that other eye is probably going off into the weeds somewhere as well. So you don't want to have too good of a time and forget to get things done. I think the high influencers are notorious for not being able to close because they're too busy chatting and they forget to go back to the main goal of the conversation. So I think that would be the strongest advice I would give to a high eye is don't forget to get the deal done. Maybe you could make some kind of agreement that, once we come to an agreement, then we can celebrate together. And that might be a good incentive to get that other person.
Party.
Exactly. We'll celebrate. And one other thing that influences a high influencer, they do they don't want to read the instructions, the manuals. They don't care about the guarantees, all those things that you'll find with somebody else. But they do like testimonials, especially testimonials of people that they like. They'd rather know that other people that are similar to them have that same product. I would typically, like if I wanted to buy a new printer, I might call Martha and say, Martha, do you have a good printer? Yes. What is it? She would tell me, that's good enough for me. That endorsement from somebody else that I like and is like me, who is having success with that product, that's usually good enough for me. So they are good with those types of selling skills, those testimonials from people who have one, people they can relate to.
Excellent. All right. Well, let me pick it up with that high influencer selling to the low influencer, which is the reserved communicator. Now, this is going to take way more energy for that high influencer to sell to this reserved communicator than that high influencer. Because once again, this reserved communicator is more restrained, controlled, and reflective. They are also a processor like that high-low dominant that I just described to you. So they prefer you to be socially discreet, and they can struggle to engage with styles that are very different from theirs. So think introversion versus extroversion here, because that's what we're dealing with. So that high influencer is going to have to go in more quiet and a more casual approach, not that high energy, because they will really not get along well with this reserved communicator if they don't go in low and slow. And they need to make sure they're focusing on the details and the facts and the tangible results that their products can yield for this person. And remember that high influencer is not all about the details. They're big concept people that love staying in that space, not in the detailed space. So they're going to have to really think about, what is my approach going to be? And I often talk to some of my sales coaching clients about, what do you do to find out what you can about this person online before you meet with them? Are you able to look at their LinkedIn profile? Perhaps they have some YouTube videos out there about their services. Is there some way to observe them so that you know going in what you're in for? And if you're not doing that, then maybe you need to practice trying to do that. And I only say that when you're having to sell to somebody that is just so different from your behavior style. So you need to give these reflective folks more time and space. Leave behind the detailed information for them. They are going to want to talk to people and or get some kind of written document from people that are using the product to validate that it's legit. It helps if the product's been around and it's tested and tried and true for this particular reserved communicator. So I think that that this is one that's going to take a lot of energy from that influencer to get them to yes, but it's all possible as long as they're adapting their profile.
I think it will take a lot of energy, but not energy in an outgoing way. It's going to take the energy to control your own energy. These low, I think this is the toughest relationship in my experience with clients. High I, low I, the toughest relationship, because if you remember that high I, all they want to do is influence and win people over. The low I does not care a thing about that. They don't care if people don't like them. They don't care if they're not trying to please people. They don't care about the experience. They are a lot more withdrawn. They're very matter of fact, and they care about facts. And so by telling, my line of it's going to be awesome will get you zero, nowhere with the low I. And it's so frustrating for a high I because you just want to win them over, at all costs. And it's just not how they do it. They have a BS meter on their forehead, and they will come at you very suspicious. So it's another challenge to win them over, but you just, can't let that get you down. Like that's their defense mechanism is to be very skeptical, and they don't want to get taken. And so kind of similar to that, high D doesn't want to get taken. But again, making it sound lovelier than it is no way. It's not going to work with a low I. They're just not influenced that way. They're influenced with data and facts.
Right. And being able to kind of leave them with all of that you shared with them and a leave behind, and give them for certain a date you're going to follow back up with them.
Yeah.
So that, and if you give them 4 days out and they said, no, I want 5, hey, just go with it, because they want the time and space to make the most right decision. I won't say perfect decision, but the most right decision that they can make.
Yeah. And again, they want that power. They don't want to be sold by a shyster.
Yeah. All righty.
Good luck with that, high eyes.
Thank you.
So if we look at a high influencer steady, trying to sell to a high S, which we call a high steady, that steady is, they're looking for understanding. They are low risk takers. They're very patient and passive and predictable, consistent. So this is another one of those low and slow. You want to go in this way. They're not as skeptical as that low I is. They're welcoming and lovely, compassionate and accepting, but they may come across as being indifferent or hesitant because they don't like a lot of conflict. So they'll have a poker face. You don't really ever know what they're thinking. They're pleasant and they'll smile and nod, but you don't know if they're really believing what you're saying or not. So that's kind of tough. The high I thinks, oh, they love me, because she smiled a lot and she was very nice. But when you walk out that door, she could throw your materials in the trash, if you haven't reached them right. So again, you want to reach them very patiently, make some kind of connection about family, about the weather, just something that shows that they are a human being before they are an object to be sold to. They like that warm rapport, and they don't want to be overpowered by that high I either. So again, use your friendliness, but use it in a more controlled way, and just look for signs of agreement or maybe some hesitation, which is really tough. These guys have a really good poker face. They are not ones that you want to put on the spot. They will also want some information. They're going to want time. They may want to test it out.
And the only thing I was going to add is, remember that high influencer and that high steady are both relationship oriented. So they can connect pretty well. But just like Cindy said, I mean, you cannot read that high steady. They smile and nod, but they may inside their head be saying no, no, and no, but you would never know it. You would
Yeah,
just never know it. So they're a little tricky, a little tricky. So
indeed.
I'm going to go over this outgoing influencer selling to a dynamic communicator. This is the low steady. And this is where that high influencer can breathe a sigh of relief because this dynamic communicator is looking for new ideas. They have more energy and they're show up in a different way from that high steady because they really love to have that conversation flow and talk about things that are interesting to them. And, they're going to be able to match the high influence is going to be able to match that energy,
Yeah.
which leads to the potential for a quicker positive outcome than you would see with the other two that we've just talked about. But what you need to make sure you're doing with this dynamic communicator is giving them options and pathways to get to whatever their end goal is. And you need to really pay attention to how you're reading them, which most influencers are really pretty good at reading others and having information that they may need to share with this dynamic communicator in order to get them to the yes that you're trying to get them to. But, again, an easier dynamic to converse and talk about your product features. They'll be inquisitive and be asking questions of you. But, pace is going to be a big connecting factor for both parties in this particular selling arrangement, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that low steady, they're very quick on their feet and they change direction really quickly. So you got to be ready to go toe to toe with them.
Yep.
They're creative as well. Unlike their high steady counterparts that are more reliable and maybe more linear in the way they talk, they like mixing it up.
Right.
So don't be surprised
Yeah.
if all of a sudden the road changes. Just jump on and stay with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a good matchup.
Hop on that train. Yeah.
Now, speaking of not great matchups, once again, if our last factor is the C, compliant, conscientious. There's a lot of descriptors for that C. The high C, we call a precise communicator. They are looking for information. In many ways, they're kind of opposite of a high I. The influencer is people focused and fast paced, whereas the high compliant is data focused or task focused and slow pace. They are perfectionists. They are the rule followers. So they are going to want to understand all the components of whatever it is that you're selling. They expect you to be, careful and compliant and neat, and they want to get the job done right, not just get the job done. And so they're not looking for shortcuts. They're not looking for any of that. They're looking for the best fit that's going to get them to their cause, to their end goal safely. And they're very detail focused. So they are going to want as much information as you can possibly provide them. They're not typically ones that love testimonials like your high I counterpart that we were talking about, but they do respect a testimonial from somebody in the same field who they respect their credentials. That's the only way any kind of testimonial is going to influence their decision. They want to know who is saying it and what that person's credentials are. So they're going to want you to lead with facts and figures and data and proof. You've got to present a logical, compact, non-emotional, non-personal, precise presentation. This is not someone that you want to chit chat with and ask about their family and all of that. It's very proper It's very respectful. You stay on your side of the desk. Ask them questions. Make sure that you kind of take this one step at a time and they have all the information they need. You can still be friendly, but you need to be direct and not beat around the bush, or like I said, be overly personal. So they want facts over friendships, and they're looking for, perfection. They're looking for results that are going to take them to where they want to go. And if there is any kind of, I don't want to say defect, but some issue with whatever it is you're selling, be upfront about that. Say, here's one thing that we don't score as high on, but we make it up for this. They don't want to do the research and find this out and feel like you've been keeping that from them. They just want all the facts, and then they're going to weigh all of those before they make their decision. Again, these are not people to pressure or rush. They're going to take in all the information. They're going to read all the information.
Right.
And fact check.
Right. Yeah. One of the thoughts that I have is we did sessions on behavior style matching.
Yeah.
And this high influencer with this high compliant, they have a very low behavior style matching score. If that gives you any indicator of the challenge and high influencer has going into this meeting with this high compliant, because they are very curious. Those high compliance are going to ask a million questions. So you need to know your stuff, so that you don't sit there and give them an answer that causes them to not trust that you don't know your product.
Don't BS
really
them.
well.
Yeah. Don't.
Yeah.
They're very similar to that low I, right?
Yeah.
They want logic and facts, not persuasion and all.
Yes.
They're very similar to the low I description that we talked about.
Yes. Right. Right. And then I get to close it out with this high influencer selling to a low compliant, which is called a pioneering communicator. And when you think about the word even pioneering, you think about people that are more futuristic and visioning and able to see the future, and they're very independent, unconventional, like to experiment, and they're very outspoken. So there's a lot of connection points that are good for that high influencer compared to this pioneering communicator. So I would say this, again, is an easier sell than what Cindy just described, right? And pioneering communicators and outgoing communicators are both big picture, conceptual. They like to dream about things. They are innovative and really pushing for favorable outcomes. And that's all really good, because you can lean into those tendencies to sell to this pioneering communicator and match their energy. They've got great energy, enough questions that they may ask you something you don't know the answer to. And don't BS your way through it. Just say, you know what? I can look into that and get back to you this afternoon on that, but do not overlook it. Feel free to paint a picture that really helps them see what outcomes they have. And you have some other clients that are like them that have purchased before, and use them as references for yourself to see if you can't get them to that yes sooner, because they're not going to take a long time to make a decision. They're just not.
They're not going to get
They're
lost.
pioneers, as you know.
Yeah. They're not going to get lost in the weeds and the details. And I was thinking you were describing pioneers as a nicer way of saying they're not the rule followers, but you painted a good picture of that low compliant.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
We're having a little bit of internet trouble. We're having a little bit of internet trouble. So we might have some gaps, and I'll apologize for that if we had any during this podcast, but this was a fun one. Probably because we're both high eyes. And so we see a lot of ourselves in here, and almost all the advice is rein it in a little bit, depending on who you're talking to. And so it's a good,
that's right.
Good thing to know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So next time we'll be on our third of our 4-part series, and we'll look at selling from that high steady, the high S side.
Right.
And that will be very different than what we talked about today. And,
Yeah, it'll be very fun. Very
see
fun.
things from their perspective.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great rest of the week, and we will see you guys soon.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Bye.